Hey everyone, it's Barbie K and I'm back with another video. Since so many of you guys have been asking for it, I decided to do a Draw My Life video. I know I'm late to the trend, but thinking about all the art movements I've created in the 20th century, I think it's okay that I'm late to this one. My real name is Barbie Kruger, as many of you know, and I was born on January 26, 1945 in Newark, New Jersey. After I graduated from high school, I went to Syracuse University, but left 1 year later because my father unfortunately passed away. In 1965, I decided to go to Parsons School of Design in New York for a semester. Over the next 10 years, I pursued graphic design for magazines and freelance picture editing. In the late 1960s, I became interested in poems and was writing my own, being different and being cool. While at Parsons School of Design, I studied art and design and got a job at Condé Nast Publications. Some time after, I got position of head designer for the following year. After getting head of design, I worked at a couple other publications before leaving. In 1969, I started creating my first pieces. I made big wall hangings made from yarn, beads, sequins, ribbons. Sorry, I have something in the throat.
Sorry about that. Anyways, I went really viral for the art I created in the 1980s as a part of the contemporary art movement. So, what techniques did I use in the creation of my most famous art from this period? And how did I use them to achieve critical commentary on the world around me? Well, I gained my following for my signature art style, which was completely inspired by my career in graphic design and advertising. To quote myself, Barbara Kruger, graphic design is the biggest influence in my work, and became, with a few adjustments, my work as an artist. So, how do I make it? First, I take large black and white photographs, which are often appropriated from popular media, such as vintage commercial art. I then superimpose them with text, typically in black, white, and red. I used a Futura bold oblique font, a gripping font typically used in headlines and titles. I directly interact with my audience in the text, using pronouns such as I, you, and we. The combination of familiar photography juxtaposed with the gripping and often accusatory text is how I achieve my messaging. My work criticizes global issues that were especially prevalent in the context of my community of New York in the 1980s. I explore ideas of an over-commercialized world, attacks on feminine autonomy, and our relationship to art and popular media. And since so many of you guys have been begging for it in the comments, I decided to share some global issues that my work covers. Number 1. Capitalist society emphasizes hyper-commercialization and consumerism to determine identity over personal expression and individuality. Number 2. The lives of unborn fetuses are exploited to restrict women's personal and societal freedom. Number 3. Women face a loss of societal autonomy as their opportunities are restricted through systemic oppression and cultural prejudice. So let's dive right into it with some of my most famous work from this period. Starting with my first piece I'm going to show you all today.
In 1982, I created an untitled piece with the words, "How come only the unborn have the right to life?" Like all my pieces, I use my art to comment on societal issues including consumerism and politics, and although you can see my viewpoint, my words are purely observational and never criticize anyone directly. In this piece, you can see a girl standing directly into the camera. This gives the effect that no matter where the viewer is standing, the girl is looking into your eyes. The movement I created with the various lines coming out of the girl's left eye forces viewers to make eye contact with her, and in turn humanizes her. This forces anti-abortionists to see who they are hurting when prioritizing an unborn fetus over actual people. In a small box at the bottom, I state, "Celebrate the fetus, starve the child." By using extreme phrases, it labels the issue of abortion as a deadly and urgent matter. People tend to diminish an issue because they can't see the effects directly, but when I place urgent phrases by utilizing pathos, appealing to the viewer's emotions in front of a victim of the issue, it creates a much more real problem. As are all of my photographs, this one is black and white, which I feel creates an old-timey feel, or a memorial portrait, like the child is already dead. Ultimately, I used this piece to highlight the abuse of power that politicians and the elite have, so much so that they can decide who lives and who dies.
Here we have another piece I created in 1982, also untitled but referred to as You Invest in the Divinity of the Masterpiece. I created this piece to critique the idolization of the white male narrative in our Western art canon. I noticed that many of our Western classics, or masterpieces, center the perspective of white men and are revered much more highly than pieces from other artists and perspectives. The background of this piece is the most central point of Michelangelo's most famous fresco in the Sistine Chapel. It is the hand of Adam reaching out to the hand of God to mark the divine creation of man. It is important to note that both the creator and the subjects of this famous artwork are white men. To dismantle the untouchability these white men have in art history, I started to edit this famous work by removing the color and increasing the contrast. The grayscale removes the life from this work, removing the perception of grandeur and awe from the fresco. This increased contrast draws the cracks on the fresco to the viewer's attention. These cracks ground the art by reminding the viewer that our masterpieces can also be dated or flawed, as the cracks are a sign of age and imperfection. I used my graphic design skills next to overlay the image with horizontal lines across the top, center, and bottom. This breaks up the piece and pushes it further into the background for a more striking foreground. These lines display text that reads, "You invest in the divinity of the masterpiece," with divinity emphasized through scale and central location to the piece. The direct pronoun of you holds the viewer responsible for their role in placing one perspective above others in art history. The viewer is the one who makes a masterpiece a masterpiece. They are the ones who make it divine. The red border is the only color in the whole work, which adds a sense of aggression to the messaging. Overall, this piece calls to attention the limited ideal of perfection and masterpiece held in our Western art narrative through parallels to the classic fresco depicting creation of man through divine touch. The viewer gives the status of masterpiece to art exactly as God gives life to Adam. And such, the viewer is complacent in centering white men in our collective memory of masterpieces. Yeah. Now, let's circle back to my feminist art by moving on to my next piece. Wait, there's something in my nose. Achoo!
This piece was also created in 1982. It doesn't have a title, but it reads, "We have received orders not to move." During the 1980s, I participated in the wave of feminist activism through my art, while also fighting for the reproductive rights and patriarchal oppression. While creating this piece, there was a lot going on in the United States politically and socially. Feminism, civil rights, and the AIDS crisis were the main big issues that sparked activism through the US. Visually in the piece, you can see the black and white contrast, the woman being the black figure in the center of the photograph standing out compared to the opposing color of the white background. Using this technique, I wanted to emphasize the hunched over and paralyzed form of the woman, in which she has pins going down her body from her neck to her calves. Each pin represents the restraint, control, and oppression being pinned onto women by society. In the foreground, I have the words "not to move," which are bigger and stand out more compared to "we have received orders." With this, I wanted to emphasize the importance of those words. I wanted people to see and read what's important, highlighting the limitations that were and are still heavily imposed on women today. In my life during these years, I was starting to gain recognition for my art, and a lot of people were relating to what I was making. Transitioning on to the next art piece.
This piece was created in 1987 and shown for the first time in 2006 in Venice, Italy. It's untitled but referred to as "I shop therefore I am." It serves as a great example of my use of pronouns such as I, you, or we, holding everyone accountable, even myself. To create juxtaposition of color in this piece, I used a monochrome image of a hand facing palm forward to the camera, with a red border and a red background for the statement that the hand is shown holding, which reads, "I shop therefore I am." The statement is a play on the French philosopher René Descartes, who once famously said, "I think therefore I am." The statement implies the fact that someone is thinking means they are living a meaningful life. My manipulation of the famous quote changes the meaning to, I shop, therefore I am living a meaningful life. This presents the strong yearning of the general public to collect material possessions in order to fulfill themselves, and the fact that our consumerism has become a defining feature of our identity. The statement is written in a small rectangle, slightly resembling a business card, furthering the reference to merchandising and marketing. In my own words, this piece represents the transformation of our society into a plastic society, meaning people are more focused on what they have rather than who they are. This carries a little bit of irony in its creation because there is a large commercial market for art. This particular piece has been printed and reprinted on tote bags, t-shirts, and canvas to be purchased, and I have largely profited off of it. However, that was my original intent in the creation of this piece, to challenge the idea of the commodity status of artwork and material consumption.
Now we're gonna jump on forward 2 years in my life to look at another piece of art I created which focuses on one of my passions, feminism.
Released in 1989, I came out with my most well-known piece, Your Body is a Battleground. I created this piece for the Women's March on Washington to support reproductive freedom. In the early morning, hours before the march, I went with some of my students and illegally plastered New York City with flyers of the piece. However, this version of the art piece also had logistical info about the march and the details about the upcoming Supreme Court case. I use this piece in particular because of the use of bold text and red colors, which brings awareness to the urgency of the march. The juxtaposition of the absence of color on the woman's face and the bright red text boxes emphasizes this message. This image shows a close-up of the woman's face positioned in the center of the frame, staring directly into the camera. The woman's face in the image, disembodied, split into positive and negative exposures, and obscured by text, symbolizes to viewers the societal norms and expectations placed onto women's bodies, particularly relating to reproductive rights, beauty standards, and bodily autonomy. This artwork is also a form of protest in many ways. By splitting the face, I wanted to show how anti-abortion activists cut battle lines into women's bodies. Overall, Your Body is a Battleground serves as a visual statement for people to think about the issues involving gender politics and the continuous struggle for women's rights. Now, this piece lives in the Broad Museum where you can actually go see it in person. Actually, my pieces are kept all over the world in so many different museums and places. I'm grateful for the opportunities I had, and I'm proud of the impact my work has had. My journey has been both fun and chaotic. From my days as a graphic designer to becoming a world-famous conceptual artist, I've always sought to fight for change and encourage questions through my work. I use my art as a tool for activism and commenting on societal issues. As I reflect on my life, I feel elevated from the art I created and will continue to use my voice through visual imagery to advocate for equality and change. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey of my life. Your support means the world to me, so don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out on future content. Together, we can fight for change, inspire each other, and create a better world. Until next time, stay passionate and remember, support women.